On today's World Insight, Hong Kong's youth face many challenges. We explore the generational aspect in Hong Kong's ongoing unrest. And despite Hong Kong accounting for just 3% of China's GDP, how vital is the city for China's economy?
What is feeding your confidence?
Because we have a great support from mainland.
Here is our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight. I'm Tian Wei in Beijing. Hong Kong, as a special administrative region of China and a global financial hub, its stability and prosperity is vitally important. The national legislature's decision last month to adopt a national security law for Hong Kong has sparked discussion. Most from Hong Kong and the mainland have shown their support. Our program today, though, will bring you insights of Hong Kong insiders from different fields. How do they view the current situation in Hong Kong, and what do they hope for Hong Kong's future? First up, let's meet Stanley Ning Chow Pei, president of the Hong Kong Federation of Trade Union, the largest trade union in the Special Administrative Region of China. He is also a Hong Kong deputy to the National People's Congress. I asked him how factors within the city's society and culture have caused divergent views between different generations of Hong Kong residents. Take a listen. According to some of the latest research and analysis, a huge majority of those onto the street, particularly those who participate in the violence, are very young. So how would you understand the similarities and the differences between your members who are adults and trade union members and those who are on the streets, suggesting that they need a different Hong Kong?
确实有一个世代的那种观点的纷争啊。
It is true that there are disputes between generations. Our generation have all entered society and the workforce and are more practical. However, we see that the younger generation, especially students who engage in society through social media, will definitely have different viewpoints from their elders. This happens in all of our members' families.
比如说，我们的会员他是支持我们反暴力的，但是他的孩子
For example, our members support us fighting against violence, but their children are mostly exposed to one-sided information that discredits the police and the government in school, so they don't understand some of the practices of their elders and even quarrel with them, which is part of the situation.
很不理解，甚至于会吵架，在家庭当中会吵架。这种情况呢是有一部分。
Is it common?
有一部分，我不能说是全部。
I can't say that it occurs in all families. After all, every family is different. But it is especially pronounced when the relationship between parents and children is more estranged. If the relationship is better, the conflict is less obvious. We can see that reflected in the generation gap. Different generations view the same event differently.
可以说是一种世代之间的一种差异，或者对于事件的一种差异。 但是我们也要考。
But we also have to consider that this is a matter of education.
我再举一个例子，比如说他们搞特别学生去搞堵路啊、堵地铁啊。
I want to give another example. The behavior that some students who block the road and block the subways actually outraged many commuters. The two sides even had disputes aboard a bus. If there were a lot of rioters, they tend to take matters into their own hands and beat up ordinary people. That made our employees, our members, furious. At that time, some of our members' children had been involved in relevant issues. We also told them not to undermine family relationships because of their political views.
那种关系来维系他的跟孩子的关系，而不要因为他的政治的不同而把这个关系破坏掉。
Have you ever discussed these specific issues with your members?
作为一个群众组织，我们是很密会员的联系的，所以我们有。
As a mass organization, we are in close contact with our members. We have set up some groups and contacted them through lectures and activities.
通过不同的模式去跟会员接触的。
How big is your organization in Hong Kong?
我们的会员现在是全香港最大的一个。
Our union is now the largest in Hong Kong, with a membership of 420,000 people, and includes more than 200 trade unions. The labor force is about 3.9 million in Hong Kong, with an enrollment rate of about 25%.
大概是25%。
I see. There are so many debates about Hong Kong, both inside Hong Kong and, of course, here on the mainland as well. All over the world, too, Dr. Ng. Ranging from legislation, implementation of law, political systems, education, welfare, housing, the list goes on. Where do you think is the starting point if real action should be taken, and it has to be concerted effort?
当然，一场这样的风波啊，它这个所引起的各种的原因都有。
There are many causes for unrest, including the economy, quality of life, education, justice, and so on. But the current flashpoint occurred in the context of China-U.S. political tension. We can clearly see that the United States has nothing to gain from a trade war with China, so it turned to the Hong Kong issue. But at the same time, our society has its own issues, such as the problem of people's livelihoods, the problem of the monopoly of capital, the problem of income inequality.
不公平的一个问题，比如说我们的雇员，20几年来那个工资指数都是一个平缓的，但是
For example, the wage index of our employees has been flat for over 20 years, while the average growth rate of other industries is 30 to 40%. This indicates that the wealth of this society is not properly distributed, and that leads to dissatisfaction of the government, while together with the influence of external forces all result in the violence.
所以我觉得当前呢，当然是司法系统必须要严厉的进行打击违法的一些行为。
Therefore, I think the current judicial system must severely crack down on illegal activities. The police must be strict in law enforcement, and the judicial system must deter crime with strict punishments. There should also be social reforms in education and in the concentration of capital.
经济过于集中的一个问题，司法这个过于对于这些暴乱的过于同情的一些问题。
I want to point out that the judiciary is too sympathetic to violence. Political precedents exist in the judicial system. All cases should be based on a fair trial rather than political leanings.
公正来审判的，而不是因为人的政治的取向而审判的。
So, obviously, the economy is going to suffer as a result of the chaos, at least. We do not know for how long. Meanwhile, your members, who are active workers here in Hong Kong, are also have to bear with the consequences. So what can you, your trade union, do for your members?
确实，在这段时间，有几个行业，比如说旅游的，还有餐饮的、酒店的。
During this period, tourism, catering, hospitality, retail, logistics, transportation, and other related service industries have been greatly impacted, with job losses and income affected. For example, tourism in Hong Kong is very fragile. If there are no tour groups, there will be no income. Some people are already living on credit. So the Federation of Trade Unions got together with several unions and put forward a lot of proposals to the government, such as the reduction in licensing fees and taxes. The next step is to ask the government to create an emergency fund for unemployment assistance.
下一步我们还要向政府提出要有一个紧急的失业救援的基金。
The future of Hong Kong belongs to its youth and young generation. However, this generation, together with the others in Hong Kong, is going through the ups and downs of the society. What is their sense of belonging, as well as hope and plans for the future? Earlier, I got the chance to talk to Gary Wang Chi-hin, non-official member of Hong Kong SAR's Commission on Children, to find out more. You were on 2 visits to the Polytech University when it was at the center of chaos. Tell me what you saw over there, who you met, what kind of interactions you had with them.
On the 18th of November, I received a mobile phone message from a young person inside the Polytechnic University. She was asking for help because she would like to leave the university, and then she asked whether a group of community leaders, including me, could go into the university and bring them out from the university. So what I have seen is there are a number of young people. Actually, I was dealing with a group of 14 students aged from 12 to 16. So they are categorized.
So obviously none of them are university students.
The groups I was dealing with are mainly underaged children, I would say under 18. Of course, within the universities, there were lots of university students and adults, but I was dealing with those who are under 18 because of my affiliation with the Commission on Children in the government.
So tell me, what did you talk to them about?
I acted as a listener because I think the young people would love to have someone to listen to them. And then I asked them, why did you make the decision to come into the university? Why did you get involved in the protest and social movement? And I think those who are under 15, 14, they didn't really know the crux of the matter in detail. But they felt that they had the responsibility to come out, to get involved in the social movement because of the influence of their peers and the social media. Because they felt that staying at home and watching TV doesn't really show that they do concern the society itself.
Even though they do not know exactly what they are quote-unquote fighting for.
Exactly. They didn't really know the detail, I would say.
So eventually, did they leave after you talked to them?
Well, we spent some time to convince them, and then they left together with us. So the whole exercise I experienced, you know, some young people were innocent. They didn't know the issue in detail. They didn't have the report. When they open up their bags, they say there's only a book inside with a mask. And when we talked, they were very nervous. They said that they wouldn't do the same thing again.
So what do you think have made them to stay there eventually? And now, where are they?
Well, as I said, it was about peer pressure.
Peer pressure.
And the media, you know, phenomenon in Hong Kong, because it's almost every day when you open your Facebook account or Instagram, you have seen this protests every single day or every week, every weekend. So I think every children would have asked themselves, should they go to the protest? Should they be on the ground? Some of them will be coordinated by their friends. And then why did they leave? I think after, you know, certain percent of children, they probably will reflect and learn, you know, whether they should continue to protest or they should go back home, or, you know, and because some of them are very scared after their participation.
You are a member on the Commission on Children. What are some of the exact policies that you and your peers are looking at and suggesting to the SAR government now?
Well, we are actually looking at various policies. The first one is how can we develop our children when they were young, and so that make sure they will be healthy physically and mentally. Mental illnesses is a major issue of our children because they are highly stressed. They academically, in life, they feel that they are under pressure. So that is one of the issues we are looking at. Also, there are a number of children who are, for example, ethnic minorities. For example, they have special educational needs. They find it very difficult to be included in our society. That is why we have to build inclusive policies to make sure they are better engaged. And last but not least is about a child abuse case. Because in Hong Kong, child abuse case is quite, is on the rise. And we didn't know why, but we need to figure out all those cases and make sure the children will be protected.
One of the things people have been asking is that whether there's going to be one generation or even two generations difficulties in order to bring unity and consensus among those who you call children today in Hong Kong. What do you think?
Well, I think we do need intergenerational dialogue because for those adults I know, not many of them have experience in talking with children who are on the ground protesting. And when I talk with children, they also find it difficult to talk with the older generation. But I mean, Hong Kong has to be united, and we need to find a common ground. That is why a person like me should be the one who build a bridge between the older generation and the younger generation. So to me, is some people would say that young people are problematic in Hong Kong. But I would say that we have no choice. In order to secure a promising future of Hong Kong, we have to make sure they are happy and they are fulfilled. That is why listening is the first step. And I hope more community leaders will join us to do the same thing, rather than keep on blaming them. Blaming doesn't bring us anywhere.
Do you think that has already started?
Yes, and I think the government leadership has reflected. They realize that our youth policy has not been doing well over the past few years, and they realize that they need to have more platforms to engage the youth. Because even the youth told me they want to demonstrate their social responsibility, but they have no proper channel to do it. If we have better platforms to engage them and their voice are heard, and I think it will be better to our governance.
So you're suggesting more social media platforms?
I believe so, because we are living in a 7/24 media cycle. But when we look at our government arrangement, they will get off from work usually at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. every day, while the netizens are very active at midnight. Usually the netizens will attack the government in the evening and at midnight. So if we don't have a 24-hour social media unit per se within the government, I think we will find it very passive. We can't actually proactively respond to the social media and actually engage with the netizens.
There are so many things to do in Hong Kong in order to make things better, but what do you think is the priority and where is the starting point?
I think first of all, we shouldn't see this issue is only related to young people. It should be related to the majority of our society.
Yeah.
I would say for any political leader, they have to look at the interests of the majority. Majority means that over 3 million people, at least 3.5 million people of Hong Kong. So the majority. So I think the majority of Hong Kong people are asking for, number one, affordable housing. They are looking for a better retirement scheme. They are looking for better education, more job opportunities per se. So all these pragmatic issues have to be tackled.
I see.
But of course, political and constitutional reform should be considered. And there are sizable of people in Hong Kong are expecting there will be, another round of constitutional reform in the future. So I think it is important, and we have to bear in mind, it is not only about livelihood issue.
Yeah.
It's about livelihood issue, it's about political issue.
People have been asking as to whether those from Hong Kong are having a more superiority look, particularly toward the mainlanders, particularly think about the so-called political system advantage. What do you think? Is it fair?
I think it's 50-50 today. I do believe it's more about how mainland Chinese and local Hong Kongers can be integrated or can be communicated, collaborated easier. That is why we should create more opportunities for these two groups of people to collaborate.
Yes. You're watching World Insight. Coming up on our program, despite Hong Kong accounting for just 3% of China's GDP, how vital is the city for the overall economy? We'll find out about that after this break. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight. Today we are focusing our attention on Hong Kong. Over the past decade, the mainland and Hong Kong has developed massive economic and business links with each other. Through decades of reform and opening up, the mainland has also enjoyed rapid economic development. Some question whether this has diminished Hong Kong's relevance to the mainland over time. Earlier, at this year's World Economic Forum in Davos, I met Victor Chu, chairman of the First Eastern Investment Group in Hong Kong. He told me, though Hong Kong's economy has shrunk relative to the rest of China because the latter is really growing very fast, it remains vital to China as a whole. You and your family has been instrumental contributing to the establishment of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange decades ago. Tell me more about that part of the family history if you can.
The Hong Kong Stock Exchange is over 100 years old, and when my father joined in 1960, there were only 50 members, and most of them were not Chinese. They were international firms or firms from the British colonial world. And so in 1969, a number of the leading Chinese families decided to set up a second stock exchange called the Far East Exchange. And my father joined the Far East Exchange as a member of the Hong Kong Exchange. So that was quite unusual too. Eventually, Far East became the biggest one. Hong Kong Exchange was the oldest one, and there were two further smaller ones. And in 1986, the government decided to unify the four stock exchanges to create one. And the Hong Kong Stock Exchange today, as a company, has one of the largest market capitalization of all exchange companies in the world. You know, its market capitalization is larger than London, Nasdaq, and New York combined.
Very interesting to learn about the history. And now, as we know, you also interacted with China's mainland since the very beginning of China's reform and opening up, long before the company law or the corporate law was put into place, long before the security law, of course. It was only later that the mainland has all of this. Tell me, how did it work? You know, entrepreneurs from Hong Kong at the very early stage be able to work with the mainland for some common purpose.
Coming back from mainland, my expertise was on the commercial, corporate, and security side. And when I joined the Stock Exchange Governing Council in the late 80s, I thought there's an opportunity for Chinese company to use Hong Kong as a market to experiment international capital raising. So in 1991, we tried to persuade the Chinese authorities just to do that. And surprisingly, they were interested. And that was the beginning of what is today is the H-share program.
And the H-share, actually, you were instrumental in proposing the existence of the H-share. What was it like for you at the very beginning? Why do you think at that time it was so important?
I thought there was a win-win opportunity. Hong Kong was dominated by property stocks, right? And also a lot of the Hong Kong industries was already going up north, right? And our market was too narrow. In order to develop Hong Kong's market, we either have to go into venture capital market, or we have to encourage the Chinese companies to use Hong Kong. And the difficulty was, at that time, China has no company law, no securities law. And that's why those discussions at the beginning were so useful. And I was very lucky. I was in the right position to embark upon the initial discussions. And after hard work from both sides for over 2.5 years, we finally made the first set of H-shares possible in 1993.
Amazingly, people were all supporting that idea.
But the difficulties was technical one. For example, when there's a shareholders dispute with the company, the law that governs will be the law of the country of incorporation. So if it's Chinese companies coming to list in Hong Kong, it's Chinese law that will apply. But there was no Chinese law because there's no company law or securities law.
Right.
So we have to fill in those gaps by way of addendum, a listing agreement, in the listing agreement between the company and the exchange, which is protected and guaranteed by the authorities in China.
I see. Fascinating history. Victor, given, I have to say this, what happened over the past year in Hong Kong, Is it important for people to understand this part of history? What kinds of inspirations do you think they can draw from the real history of Hong Kong?
I think we have to understand that if Hong Kong colleagues can understand the potential of the Chinese market and how Hong Kong in the initial stages of the open door policy and the development of the capital market, Hong Kong has played a vital role. That will be win-win. And I think we're still at the beginning of that journey. Hong Kong has a lot more contribution to make, and the Chinese market is huge. The capital market development, international banking development, there's a lot more role for Hong Kong and China to work together.
But on the other hand, as part of China, Hong Kong it is also competing with other entities on the mainland. For example, from Shenzhen Stock Exchange, Shanghai Stock Exchange, we all know this. So how Hong Kong remain attractive, particularly given the recent events? That's a big question mark in many's minds. Victor.
We have to learn from each other. Shenzhen is now the Silicon Valley of the East, and that again provides a lot more opportunity, and Hong Kong have to integrate more into that market. Shanghai, of course, is the international financial center of China, but the size of the Chinese market, having Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Tianjin or Qingdao, that's completely possible. And I hope Hong Kong will continue to be helpful, to be supportive, both ways, by Chinese companies, by Chinese government, and Hong Kong entrepreneurs can continue to play the role.
What does it take for Hong Kong to continue to play a role, particularly from Hong Kong side?
I think the mainland culture in the last 40 years has really developed so quickly, and we need to catch up to it.
Like what?
For example, in terms of the technology, in terms of AI, in terms of fintech, I think mainland China leads the world, and Hong Kong needs to be part of that.
Will Hong Kong be able to accept the fact that the mainland, particularly China's mainland these days, are so advanced in those fields? I
think the vast majority of the general public understand that. There are obviously social and structural problems in Hong Kong we need to deal with, but I think long term I'm very optimistic. I think the Hong Kong being part of China and yet being part of the international community will work in a win-win basis.
Victor, you've been living in Hong Kong for decades, and your family's business have been prospering there, and you've been contributing to Hong Kong as well. But let me ask you about the latest events in Hong Kong. What does that mean? Will this bring more division to Hong Kong? And what would that mean for Hong Kong's economy?
I think it's a wake-up call to many capitalist society when the prosperity of the system is not shared on a just basis. Sooner or later, there will be backlash. And Hong Kong being one of the freest society in the world, we are the first one to take a hit. Hong Kong will be the first to recover, having said that.
What is feeding your confidence?
Because we have a great support from mainland, the vast majority of Hong Kong colleagues understand that we have political anxiety, we have social problems, but we need to, together, we need to find a package that can satisfy most stakeholders. We need to find a new social consensus. 50 years under one country, two system does not mean that we cannot change. We need to change with time. We need to look at what has happened in the last 28 years, and we need to find a way to refine our methodologies so that we can work with our mainland colleagues closer, work in Hong Kong young people better, give them more hope, solve out our social and structural problems, and I think long term we'll be fine. We'll be competitive.
Victor, I can feel your passion and love about Hong Kong. One question is very important. So many things that we know, issues about Hong Kong that need to be dealt with. What is the leading thread?
There are two leading threads. One is that economic inequality is not acceptable in a first world city like Hong Kong. Right? We need to do much better. The second thing is there are political. It's almost like when we were approaching 1997, there were anxieties. And I think we need to find a way to show that Hong Kong, being part of China, there's a long-term future, and a long-term future means that Hong Kong, being part of China, and continue to be innovative, free, and be able to play its role that the one country, two system requires.
Looking forward about Hong Kong's future, 5 years, 10 years, how fast are we going to solve the problem, and how far can Hong Kong go from here?
I think it will take a few years. It is not something we can solve tomorrow. It would take different stakeholders to achieve a cohesive and a sustainable formula to reinvent Hong Kong so that it can play a useful and constructive role under one country, two systems.
Victor Chu, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're watching World Insight. The MTR is the circulatory system that keeps Hong Kong moving. It brings commuters to work, and a standstill would ground Hong Kong's economy to a halt. How does a Hong Kong in motion tie in with a vibrant economy? Earlier, I spoke to Jacob Kemp, CEO of Hong Kong's MTR Corporation. He told me that to maintain financial stability, an unobstructed transportation system is extremely vital. MTR, as a major transportation method for Hong Kong, has been caught in crossfire among different groups who argue that you should be on their side, and why you haven't. What do you make of that reality as one which is running a transportation company?
The mission of MTR is to keep Hong Kong running. The city's economy, the city's development, the people of the city depends on MTR to keep moving, to get on with their daily life, to work, to study, to visit people, visit parents, and to meet friends, and so on. They rely on MTR to keep their life going, and our mission is to keep Hong Kong running. That's what we have been doing throughout all this time.
When you talk about keep Hong Kong running literally, I guess there are two layers. One, of course, your train is running, and therefore passengers could be running from one place to another. Another thing is about whether Hong Kong is functioning. If Hong Kong is not politically functioning, how could it still be running, right? So what about these two layers, particularly the second layer, whether Hong Kong can still be running, if you are taking a very neutral position, quote unquote, as some say?
Of course, the same applies to all metro systems around the world. They, of course, have to work with the police, with the government, in order to ensure the security and safety of the city, and this is what we did. If you think about the MTR business, we not only run trains, we also manage properties around stations. We want to create an environment that is safe, sustainable, and also driven by innovation and well integrated. Now, in terms of sustainable or sustainability in development, I don't just mean protecting the environment. Of course, the railway is one of the most environmentally friendly transport mode, but we're also talking about financial sustainability. And in order to keep the city running, we need a highly efficient railway, and we need to continue to upgrade the system with new technology, and that requires financial sustainability. In terms of integration, I don't mean just integrating different modes of transport, but also integrating with the various functions of the city with the transport network. And through our what we call TOD, transit-oriented development, we are able to integrate the functions of the city and the development of the city through the transportation network. And by running an efficient transportation network, we enable the city to continue to grow as well as economy to function.
What's going to happen to the Hong Kong economy? I mean, you're an important component of the business community there. With all the latest, do you think many people would still be extremely interested in traveling to Hong Kong? We have seen the drop already for the Spring Festival season, particularly coming from the mainland. I mean, what is going to be your future plan?
Hong Kong has a reasonably strong foundation. But of course, tourism is a major part of our economy. So over time, we have to rebuild the confidence of our visitors. But we do have many other experience and technology and know-how and services that actually sustain the growth of the economy of Hong Kong. Just give MTR as an example. Just now we talked about the TOD concept. Yes. And the implementation of that, the rail plus property model, our management, our life cycle management of our railway assets, and rail operations management, how we develop new lines and new technology and so on. We have been successful in exporting some of these know-how and services to other places in Europe, in United Kingdom, in Sweden, in Australia, and of course back to our motherland, our homeland in mainland China, several cities. So we believe we still have a lot to contribute to the world economy, and in doing so, hopefully that will sustain the growth of Hong Kong.
What does Greater Bay Area mean for MTR?
In terms of, in my view, there is a strategic meaning. It has enlarged the possibility of the Hong Kong economy. Now, Hong Kong economy it's large in its size, but in absolute terms it's small. Okay, it lacks the potential for significant growth, and it needs support in technology, in production, in leisure, travel, in entertainment, which are provided by various centers within the Greater Bay Area. Mm-hmm. So I believe when we add all these centers together, the Greater Bay Area will be a much bigger potential, much bigger opportunity for us to grow, as well as for the world economy to be benefited.
Do you think many of your passengers understand that?
I believe a lot of the Hong Kong citizens understand our future is not only in Hong Kong, it's with mainland, it's with our own country.
Will you be competitive against, quote unquote, your mainland partners and counterparts? There are many out there. You're competing not only for the Hong Kong market, you have a huge advantage there, but you're also competing on the international basis because you do many other projects around the world, either constructing or managing some of the projects in different parts of the world. What do you think about that competition?
What we have found from our experience both in the mainland as well as elsewhere is that we do not have the monopoly of good ideas. We do not have the monopoly of competitive advantages. So what we have found is that we work with our partners, usually a local partner or partner nearby, to increase our combined competitiveness. And in fact, that has been the story of Hong Kong. We actually work with others in order to create better competition for all of us and better services to all our customers.
That sounds very general to me.
But it is how we have been successful. And I believe that will continue to be the critical success factor for us.
What about the elites like you in Hong Kong? Many are very curious about where you guys come from. What about your track record? How much does that interact with Hong Kong, with the mainland, and also, quote unquote, with the West? Jacob, I know you taught in university in the UK. Mm-hmm. You also work at different places, and later you moved back to Hong Kong and been in MTR for more than 25 years. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So, to people like you, the so-called elite in Hong Kong, how do you see where you belong to, and how do you evaluate the most important values of you in terms of the latest development?
I would not consider myself an elite.
I know you would say that.
In Hong Kong.
Yes, a big contributor, shall we say it that way. Go ahead, Jacob.
I believe I am a typical Hong Kong citizen who may have some experience working outside of Hong Kong, partly educated in Hong Kong, partly educated elsewhere. So I think we serve best as the bridge connecting our home mainland, our own country, with the rest of the world. We understand both sides, and we can actually bring people and businesses together. So I thought, 7 months ago, we are the best placed location, city, that will help the continued growth of our nation, as well as helping the world to be benefited by the significant growth in China. Even now, I still believe Hong Kong and its people has that edge, has that competitive advantage, and also has that duty to contribute to the growth of our own nation as well as the growth of the world.
And that's all we have for today's program. If you'd like to see more, search us, World Insight, or check out our YouTube channel, our Facebook and Twitter accounts. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for watching. Bye for now.